But the lesson, I think, that probably still isn't fully learned is the reaching in part, and actually just stepping in and just checking in on someone and saying, are you okay? Do you need my help? Or can I, what can I do for you? It's not about, that's not fixing somebody, but it's just standing shoulder to shoulder. And I've certainly appreciated that support from people, because sometimes that's all you need.
You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in again to the AV-IT Amplifier. If it is Wednesday, you know that your feed has refreshed with new content, and today is no exception. People who know me know I'm not much of a morning person, but there's a few things that will get you up early and get you excited, and today's guest is one of those. Because she is some 8 hours ahead of me in time. So, Iffat, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to come talk to me. Would you please introduce yourself to everybody? Who are you and what do you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I am Iffat Chaudhry. I am based in the UK. Actually live on the south coast of England. I've been in the AV industry for just over 19 years now, and predominantly work in pre-sales. So I've done various things over the years, but yeah, that's my AV bit. But you might know me for getting involved in DEI conversations and championing issues and causes. Spotlighting causes, I suppose.
All of those things for sure. And you probably, if you, you're one of those people that if you've ever met in person, you will always remember you've met that person. Someone who's extremely warm and genuine, and you feel like you're a friend even if you've only run into each other a couple of times. So thank you for taking the time to join us.
No, absolutely.
A couple of threads to go down, but first off is starting with kind of your advocacy and the things that you like to talk about and bring forward. And I love the angle that you come. So you have a show, a podcast of types called What If? And it always tees up, what if we did X? What if we saw the world in this way? So how did that concept come about to say, instead of just highlighting things, let's think about the world as if these things had been solved?
I guess it's really easy to pick on negatives a lot of the time, and I think we all accept that as an industry and actually as a human race we've got a lot of work to do. When I think about discrimination and I think about the kind of things that the unnecessary struggles that some people have to go through, because of things that largely they can't change. So, for example, I can't change the colour of my skin. Mm-hmm. I think where it really started was, rather than talking about this bad thing happened or this terrible thing happened here or this employer behaved in such a way, is to really just shift that into a bit more of a proactive, positive conversation. Not to not talk about it. So I'm not talking about brushing things under the carpet, but actually to say, all right, this has happened. How can we be better? What do we learn from this? And we do this in our everyday lives, right? We do it at work. I can't think of a project where we haven't had a lessons learned conversation after. Mm-hmm. Or any exercise that you do, you stop. And I think as human beings, we are reflective, or most of us are reflective. And my question really to people is, why wouldn't you want to be better? And why wouldn't you want to do better by your fellow colleagues, peers, family, friends, community, wider circle. We all impact each other all the time. So, so the what if, I mean, thank you to my dad for my name, because that's, it gave me a nice little play on my name, but I don't know what else I would have called it, because it is that, to get people thinking about what if we did things differently.
Yeah. And I think to start like you mentioned, the normal progression is whether the negative or here's the problem, and hopefully we get around to, and there are a lot of discussions, and it can be in any topic where we're very good at identifying challenges and talking about challenges. And when it turns to
and barriers. Yeah.
What happens? What do we do about that? And what I hear a lot of is, that we need to work on that. We need conversations. We need whatever. And so to start from a place of, let's imagine the place where what if this was, and work backwards from there, is really refreshing. So if the first plug would be, if you don't follow, and we'll get your information in there. If you don't follow her, if you don't follow her show, you need to do so, because it's fantastic. On that line, is there any story that you've heard doing what if that is kind of stuck with you over time, in terms of that experience?
There are so many, and each one, I couldn't pick one. Each one comes with a bit of a burden as well. It's an absolute privilege for people to feel safe and secure enough to actually share their experiences with you. I don't take that lightly at all, to the point where I have some recordings that I haven't shared yet, because I know I need the time and space to actually manage those recordings as well. And push those conversations a bit further. But it's an absolute privilege for and I'm forever grateful for everybody who's shared their experiences or their take on life, their work, their situation, how they've overcome things, and the kind of barriers they've had and they've faced, and just really to give other people a bit of allyship and support. And I think some of the sessions that I've done, I mean, it's a year on now, but we're fast coming up to International Men's Day in November. But some of the where it's tripped over into mental health, because people have felt the impact of whatever they're going through, and however that discrimination has presented itself, where it's slipped into mental health in particularly, and you just see how much pain some people are in and what they're going through and what it means to them. And particularly, I'm thinking of a couple of people who stepped up and talked about things that were actually really hard, and changes that they went through that were they didn't know how it was going to be received, or how speaking up was going to be received for them. But I couldn't pick somebody above someone else, because they're all great stories.
So,
and we learn through stories, right? We learn from each other's stories.
For sure. I mean, that just sends me, like, I had another question ready to go, and then you just distracted me with an awesome comment right at the very end there. You're totally right. The hearing genuinely from another human being is a huge affects how people think, right? And the studies on that have been interesting, right? You could read the statistics article of the one vacuum cleaner is way more reliable than the other, but if your friend tells you they have one and it's the best thing they've ever had, that's the one you'll go get. So I guess I would be interested to hear your take. Why do you think that sort of communication is so impactful for the way that basically humans create value or create the framework in which we make decisions versus, statistics or, over or a broad look versus an individual story.
That's a really interesting question, because we live in a time of fake news, of deep fake, all these things that are there to get hits, to get people engaged in content, the things that look really, shiny and whatever. But for me, nothing beats authenticity.
Yeah.
And that connection you make with somebody when you know that they're being real and they are authentically sharing what is their truth. And it doesn't mean you have to, and this is the other thing that I really do stress to people. I am absolutely not about telling people how to live their lives or how to do things. I'm the worst at anybody saying to me that, I should eat more fruit and vegetables and whatever, and exercise more and get more fresh air and probably touch grass in the morning. And I don't do any of those things. Hardly enough. But what you can do is listen and accept and hear what somebody who's, whatever the situation is, what they're going through, what their experience is, and what that experience is for them, and accept that that's their lived experience. It doesn't mean that you have to change your religion or your belief system, but it's just accepting. And those authentic stories for me are the glue that keep societies and keep us bonded and make us connect with each other, and actually that forge understanding, and help us to do our day job a lot easier, right? I mentioned to you before, my son just started his first job based in an office, and he's working with a range of people, different ages, different backgrounds, different nationalities, for the first time. And it's a different environment to being in school, even though school is a bit of a melting pot as well. But in the work environment, there's this element of, I don't have to be here. I choose to work here. I'm getting paid to be here, and I've got to get along with these people. So it's a completely different... school kids can be super mean, and you find that in work it doesn't really get you very far, right? So
right.
you've got to do something about it. And yet organizations just don't. I think we're all getting a bit better now, but organizations just expect that they're going to put a bunch of people together in a team because that's who they've hired, and everyone's going to get along without any other effort or anything else taking place, right? So the more we can share stories and actually just make time for each other, and to find out about each other, we tend to see some things at surface level that make us seem different and look different and appear different. But the reality is we all have a lot more in common than we realise.
For sure. So you, going back to what I said at the beginning, I think you exude that interest of knowing people, and it can come across in a short time meeting you, and also in your ability to have people open up and talk about things that can be challenging, to talk about things in a genuine way. So what is it? What is it about you do you think that allows people to open up?
I don't know. You'll have to ask people.
All right. But so then is there an active process? Is there something you're doing and thinking about, or is it something that's just seems to be ingrained in the way you approach other people?
I guess I have always tried to be authentic back with people. So there's no ulterior motive to somebody speaking to me about anything, really. It's not for any kind of personal gain. I'm absolutely not interested in accolades or, it's really nice. It's really nice to be recognised and nominated for things, but I am the one who never completes when they get in touch and say, you've been nominated for this, can you fill this out and give us some more information? I generally don't do it, because it's not about me, and I do keep stressing it's the content of those conversations and the topics of those conversations that mean something. And I just see myself as a vehicle for that, I think. And I hope people, and it's the people that have the stories to share. So maybe it's that. I'm too old for 40 under 40.
Me too.
So I'm not looking for, maybe if they do a 60 under 60, I'll go for it.
It's more like that. Yeah, those of us that have made it this far. Exactly.
So I often have this banter annually with Dan Farisi over the 40 under 40, but I mean there are other lists like it. But to be honest, lists and things, you may have seen my I'm going to say banter with the wonderful Christopher Netto, who's my very, very dear brother from another mother. When we were up for AV Professional, and even that I couldn't believe that there were many people who should have been way ahead of that polling, but we had some fun with it. But we had fun with it because neither of us really take it that seriously in the sense of it. Yeah, I don't take myself that seriously.
Well, if that
makes sense.
It does make sense to
Not
that.
To be ungrateful, obviously, for the support and acknowledgement, but yeah.
But whether there's a kind of that lack of ego, and to me, I would say it's a little more like, it seems like you have a good perspective on seeing kind of what is real and what isn't, and looking at there are, these types of lists and other things are accolades, but if that is what tells you who you are and what that you're doing a good job, it won't, it's like that's empty. No. That's not going to have anything. No. So to you, it's like, that's cute that's happening, but I know who I am, and I have my own internal rubric of success, not an external rubric of success.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is actually, that's a really good point. I think when I finally understood the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, I think that was a moment of real fulfillment. That actually you've got to do things because you believe in them, and you've got to do things because it means something to you, not because you're going to get some external reward for it. Those are all nice to have, and it's nice to. I mean, obviously there are things that we need. There are basic things we need. We need to be paid. We need to, keep a roof over our heads and keep, food on the table and all of those things on a serious level. But your motivation for doing things, I think that comes from within.
And it comes through, right? People's motivation. Yeah. You can be saying the same words, but people's motivation for doing it screams louder than the things that you're saying and doing. I agree. So one other question then about kind of your show and the things that, and not just, I suppose, not just your show, but the other, the space that you've kind of occupied and decided to highlight other people's stories in here is that, it puts you in a place to hear a lot of people's pain, to hear people's struggles. It probably puts you in a place where you hear more from people, that you hear about things that are hurtful. You hear about these things. And that means you can be my guess is you're in a place that you're oftentimes carrying more than the average person would know or understand. Has that been your experience as someone who is genuine, opens up and invites people to be genuine with you?
I think it's been cathartic in some ways because and this is why I encourage people to have conversations, because sometimes when you're going through something, you can feel it can be very isolating, and you feel like, why do there will be people who look like they're having an absolutely fantastic life until you start speaking to them, and then you find out that actually we're all going through stuff. There are also some people who've confided and shared experiences and things with me that they cannot go public with, which has been, and I take it as a huge privilege, but it makes me really sad when I hear of people who work for big employers, global employers, in a couple of cases that I can think of, who have been paid off to not talk about situations that they found themselves in, have left that employer, cannot go on record to speak about it because they've settled out of court, and in some cases some really serious things that will never be proven because they never got to court, so they never really got peace with it. And those organisations have the money to buy their way out, basically, and move on, which is just the way of the world, right? That's not unique to the AV industry. That's the way of the world. We see it in the news all the time. And it's just, in some cases, it's sad to see people destroyed, and careers destroyed because of the actions of others. And I guess on a personal level, I think this year has been challenging. I was actually speaking to a couple of people just this week about the politics of the globe at the moment, and obviously you're in an election year in the States, and we've just had our election this summer. And some of the things that followed, and the unrest, and the not just political unrest, but the social unrest that people are experiencing or have experienced and witnessed, and it takes its toll. It really does, because you stop and think, why am I doing what I'm doing? Does it actually make a difference? Is anybody listening? Or is anybody... because there's still this attitude of, if it's happening over there and it's not happening to me, I can be kind of sympathetic for a few minutes. It's like when you watch something on the news and you feel, oh my God, that's really bad. But then you move on to the next thing, right? Life goes on. Which it sort of has to. And you just, it gives you a lot of pause for thought to kind of see, I can't fix things for people, but I can be an ally, and I can support where I can.
Do you?
And I think that's important as well. Not everybody wants to be fixed; they want to be heard.
So that was my question, and this is just me. My favorite topic is myself, and that comes through all the time. But I have such a hard time with that, which is, if I hear something I believe unjust or incorrect, to not feel responsibility to go fix that very thing. I'm sure that's also a white male savior thing, probably also in there. Like, oh, I can step in and correct X, Y, and Z. How do you find calmness in what you just said, which is, and this is basically, I need the lesson for myself, in people want to be heard. That's my role. And I can't go fix everything, but what I can do makes things better.
And you've answered your question yourself. I think it's better to do something than do nothing, I think.
Yeah.
And The whole, well, we saw it. Dare I use the lockdown COVID? It's all in recent memory, but dare I use that situation? We heard a lot of people talk about, you must reach out, just I'm here for you. You must, whatever. But the lesson, I think, that probably still isn't fully learned is the reaching in part, and actually just stepping in and just checking in on someone and saying, are you okay? Do you need my help? Or can I, what can I do for you? It's not about, that's not fixing somebody, but it's just standing shoulder to shoulder. And I've certainly appreciated that support from people, because sometimes that's all you need. You just need someone to listen, get it off your chest, get whatever it is. And sometimes just even airing it can give you a bit of perspective when you hear something out loud. Sometimes talking things over to yourself, it's a bit of an echo chamber, and it doesn't really, it doesn't really work in the same way as having that conversation out loud with somebody.
Yeah.
But it also has to be a safe space, and a bit of trust has to be there as well. So, yeah, all of those things. I'm sure you're doing it more right than you give yourself credit for.
Well, I appreciate that, but yeah, some of us, our internal echo chambers have a little more echo than others. You know what I'm saying? Those things, but you're right. You can eventually get really good at lying to yourself by keeping something in your own head and letting it bounce around. You mentioned kind of it with the state of the world and things. It's been a tough year. Is there, whether it be, whatever scale, looking at kind of the AV industry or a broader thing, do you see things that make you think that maybe the coming year there's things to be excited about, that there's positive movement, or I don't know, let me fish for this. What are you looking forward to in the coming year in the AV industry?
Well, that's a huge question. I don't know that I don't think we're out of the woods yet with political unrest and everything. I think until the US have their election and the US people have their say, the world may be a very different place in a few months. So it's a really challenging time for people to hold their nerve and really think about values and humanity and all of those good things that are in the majority of people. Mm-hmm. It is a minority, and sometimes, unfortunately, media and social media will have you believe that that there's nastiness on every street corner, and the reality is, thankfully, not that. Yeah. Most people, most communities are good and want good for themselves and for their children and their parents and wider friends and family. So that gives me hope, and I think there's absolutely more good people than not in the AV industry. There's certainly, if you look at some of the conversations, and you just open LinkedIn and see some of the love that's shown when we've seen a lot of people. There's been a lot of movement in the AV industry this year. A lot of organisations having restructures, and there seems to be, we are very good as an industry to at putting our arms around each other, I think, in those times as well, which can be really scary times. Well,
you're one of the people that make sure that happens. I would agree, but but it is because you're one of the people that puts their arms around people and makes it okay to do that and encourages it. So, you be part of the solution you want to be.
I'm one of many.
Fair
absolutely.
point.
Yeah.
All right. So, are
Yeah.
you okay with say one of many? Yeah. Let's see. Are you okay saying you're one of the ringleaders of that effort?
Oh yes. Yeah. Why not? I'll take that.
What, let's see what other accolades can I try and throw in here and see how uncomfortable we can make with you know the I won't do that. I won't do that. But they like I what I appreciate about I'll just throw this then. What I appreciate is that your genuineness comes across, and whatever you want or not want to be seen as that you are a leader of the global AV industry. You are a voice that people go and listen to, and you use that voice to make the world better for other people. And
I
that
hope so.
is well, you can hope so. I'm telling you. So you can just listen and believe me or not. It doesn't matter. But that it's that it one of the reasons that the AV industry feels like a family and people talk about it that way is because there are people that try to keep the keep people thinking the right way, and that if and when like you said, there are layoffs, are we focusing on how it's affecting people rather than just what does this mean for the future of my business or my company or my thing?
Right.
What does it mean to when we talk about the state of the industry? Oftentimes people are referring to how they feel like people are being treated in the industry as much as what does the outlook for the coming quarter and coming year mean. And that is because there are I'm sure not your favorite thing, but influencers or thought leaders, which are the things that are making sure that is what people, when things happen, those are the comments that people are seeing. So
And it's
deal with that.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point, because I think we forget, we're so consumed with what's the next great piece of kit. What's this small box going to do? Look at this box. It used to be this big and now it's this big, and it's going to cost, and it's so effective and it will do this and it will do that. Ultimately, our industry is nothing without people, and it's the people, it's the inventors who create those boxes. It's the people who understand their implementation. It's all people. So we forget, I think, sometimes, and it astounds me that there are organizations that don't even have, like, I don't know if you want to call it HR, their HR function or their people function at a senior management level. That they don't have it as, in terms of thinking of it and its contribution to bottom line in the way that they could. And DEI really is so sewn into that. There's plenty of evidence to show that organisations who are diverse, for example, are more profitable.
Yeah.
And having that diversity of thought at senior level is unfortunately rare.
Yeah. And that thing about,
it's important.
Whether it's DEI or anything else, it's not altruism. It is altruistic, but it's also it is to the benefit of the success of the company, of the organization. It's
Yes, it is.
Why do we want our employees to feel connected and feel valued in the workplace? Just because we're nice people? I hope so, but also they're just far more productive. So if you're not doing it, and I'll get off my own soapbox, if you're not taking care of that stuff, as a leader or manager, you are not doing your job, because you are actively subverting your own company's success. All right, so we could do this all day,
Exactly.
and I think we, probably should. But as we close out this first episode, if people wanted to get connected with you, hear more about what you have to say, and find What If, how would they go about doing that?
LinkedIn is probably my best place to be found at the moment. I've kind of stepped back a little bit from other social platforms. for some of the reasons that we've already discussed, and to keep things positive and professional. So LinkedIn. My videos can be found on YouTube. So if you look for What If with 2 Fs, it usually comes up second or third when you do the search. So it's all there.
All right. We'll drop links in the show notes. Please, everybody, that go get connected. And I get to say it. Go to YouTube and mash that subscribe and notification on What If, because you'll want it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the AV IT Amplifier. Tune in next week for more with today's guest. It'll be great, or your money back. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by HigherEdAV.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.